All right. Good afternoon, Simpler family. Happy Friday. Today is April 25th, 2025. And I'm going to get started with my session here in this Essentials Room talking about leap trades. What are leap trades and how do I trade them? Leap trades are trades that you intend to be in for a year plus. So, whether that is 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, what have you, leap trades are longer term swing trades. So, 12 plus months. For me, I leap trade both equity and options. So, not both on everything that I set up leap trades for. If a stock has come into a higher time frame demand zone or near lower trendy yearly edges, and it is affordable for me to trade options a year plus out, then I will trade options as well as buy shares of that company. When I am buying equity, it is on companies that I believe in, that I believe they have solid financials, and it is something that I intend, honestly, to hold on to the shares for 20 plus years for me. Now, I don't just buy and hold and never look at it again. I treat it as I do every other trade that I put on, in that I have areas that I will trim some of my position as price moves from lower levels up to upper levels. I will also add back into equity on dips at certain levels, and I trade that position year in and year out. So I thought it would be cool to give you some of my buy and trim levels on the Mag 7s. All of these names, the Mag 7 names, I own equity in and have been trading them this year pretty actively, actually. Last year, most of my trading in the Mag 7s, because it was such a bullish year, most of my trading was just trimming my positions. So, what I do, just like with any other trade I put on, I have a set allocation amount that I will put at risk on any given stock. So, for teaching purposes, hypothetically, let's say that my total allocation amount to ever have at risk on any one name is $10,000. That means if I have areas to buy at, and I have, in the example of Apple here, I have a total of one, two, three, four, five, and six buy triggers. I'm going to take my total allocation, divide that in six, and I have an amount that I will purchase equity, however many shares I can buy to stay within that set amount. I buy at each one of these levels. So for Apple earlier this year, my first area to buy equity, because coming into 2025, I was in 98% cash. And that is due to the fact that 2024 was so bullish that I was selling my shares as we made higher highs in all of these names and got down to where I only had 2% allocated in the equity market. So for Apple, my first buy this year was at $210. Then I added some at 202, 175. Now, that is as far as we dipped on Apple. I was then allocated almost 50% of my total allocation there that I would invest in Apple because we were at the lower trendy edge. I want to be at least 50% allocated by the time these names reach this lower yearly edge. The lower yearly edge represents a playing field of demand on high time frames, like monthly charts and quarterly charts. Okay. So I am a supply and demand trader. What that means is when price pulls back into demand, I want to be a buyer and I'm trimming on the way back up to supply. So for Apple, my last area that I added equity was at 175. The last three areas that would be a buy again for me is 160, 134, and 108. Now, as price moves up, I'm not just holding on to these shares, I am actively trading them. So I trimmed some, and what I do is I trim depending on how many trim levels I have. In this case, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 up to the upper yearly edge. I trimmed 20% of my shares at this level. Then 20% I trimmed at $210. Mind you, shares that I had bought at 175. Now, my next trim level would be at 220, 240, and 250. Okay. If price gets back up here to, let's say, 240 by 250, and then the market rolls over again, I would be adding back into these shares at the same buy levels I did before. In and out, in and out, back and forth. All right. So those are my levels that I'm actively trading Apple Leap trades at. If you like to buy options, then what you can do is at these levels, you buy at the money calls dated 12 plus months out. If you cannot afford the at the money calls 12 plus months out, then the furthest I will go out of the money to make the options affordable is my first trim target. So when price came down here to 175 where I last purchased Apple at, I the most I would go out of the money would have been right here at about the 200 strike. And if that's affordable for your account, then you can leap trade this as well. In a minute, I will give you some examples of option trades that I have traded this year with the same exact process. It doesn't matter to me if it is equity, if it is shares, or if it is options, I trade it the same way, scaling in and scaling out. I, for one, am very grateful for the pullback that we have experienced in 2025 because I needed to get more shares of these Mag 7 stocks. So for Amazon, my first buy on Amazon this year was at 206, then 185 and 166. My next buys on Amazon are 154, which is the lower yearly edge, 139, 127, 97, and $66. Now, these last options that I purchased at 166, I have trimmed some at 183 and 192. My next trims are 202, 211, and 223. If we get up to 211 by 223, or especially up here at 223, and then the market rolls over, I would be buying back in, adding at the same levels that I did earlier in this year. My levels for Google. Now with Google, I did these early ads at only 12% of my total allocation. So I added a total of 25% at 175 and 168, 12% at each of those levels. Then 157 and 147, I added another 25%, making me at or near um, 50% right there. And then I was able to buy some at 139 right here. And so that was my last buy. Now, I have trimmed these, and most recently during the overnight session last night when Google reported their earnings. They did come up to 165, which was my trim level, which is a yearly edge mid, and I trimmed some more there, but I trimmed at 156 and 165. My next trims are 175, 181, and then targeting this year 194. Again, on pullbacks, I would buy back at these levels that you see on my chart. For Meta, I wasn't able to get quite as allocated as I would have liked on the recent pullback. I only had 2 buys, but that's okay. I will take what I can get on this name. My last buy was at 489 and my first buy was at 517. I have trimmed at 542 and plan to trim again at 610 and 675 for Meta. For Microsoft, and these are all equity trades, no option trades on the Mag 7s. I simply buy the shares on these names. So, because I can swing trade these shorter term, like a month out, I don't really leap trade the Mag 7 as far as options go. So for Microsoft, I started adding to my equity position at $375 and then I bought more at 350. My next buys on Microsoft is if we get a dip down to 317 by 27 and 275 would be my next ads on Microsoft. This green box that you see right here is a higher time frame quarterly demand zone there, and that's why I have 2 buys. Now, as far as trims go for Microsoft, I have trimmed at 369 and 390. My next trim is 410, 435, and finally 457. And for me, guys, I set this up in advance. I set up my buys as good to canceled at these levels, and I set up my sells good to cancel at these levels. They are always in my account so that I don't have to stare or manage the account every single day because these are leap trades. And I have found if I try to manage the account every day for leap trades, I will do things that aren't necessary due to fear, exuberance, what have you. I just prefer to only check on my leap trades once or twice a month, is all that I check on them because I have my buys and sells in advance. All right. Next up is NVIDIA. For NVIDIA, I've actually was able to allocate up to 75% of my total allocation on NVIDIA because we really pulled back. I started adding to my equity at 115. I then added another 12% at 107, a 12% at 100, 12% at 91 for a total of 25%. And then I got this buy at 85 for a total of 75%. I have trimmed at 104 and 115. So now on pullbacks back to 91 and 85, I would be an buyer again. Final buy, wanting to be fully allocated here at the lower yearly edge at $60. Next trims 130, and the target for this year is 140. All right. And then last but not least for these Mag 7 is Tesla. Tesla, I got down to just 2 shares, believe it or not, because last year it was so bullish that I kept, trimming as we made higher highs and got down to just 2 shares. I started buying back at 314, 268, 225. My next buy would be Tesla at 201. Lower than that, I would be a buyer at 139 and 102. Now I trimmed today, as a matter of fact, at 279. My next trim is at 315, then 380, and my target this year is 450. So I will be trimming as we move up. In the event that we pull back down to 225, 201, I would be adding back into the position again at 139 and 102 and trimming on the way back up the same. So just in, out as price falls. For me, I look at that as I am buying Tesla on sell. And as price climbs, I am selling to those who are looking to buy it for $60 more than what I bought it for. So just turning profits as price continues to the upside. So that is the Mag 7. Everybody's seems to be everybody's favorite things to trade. Let me show you some that I have both leap option trades on as well as equity trades on. Right here is Dollar General. Dollar General, I was able to purchase some leaps and equity at I purchased equity first at $80.50 per share. Then I added 3 LEAP contracts right down here at about $66. Added 3 LEAP contracts and equity, purchased more equity. I then trimmed my LEAP contracts as price moved up, as well as trimming my equity. My last trims came at 92.59. My next trims would be 106, 120, 131, 157.45 by 173.47 would be my target for this year. Casey asked, "How far out is your leaps?" I so these leaps right here, I purchased in January. So I bought the January 2026 expiration, 12 months out. I have some leaps for Bank of America that were purchased in March, and those are the March 2026 KC. I purchased 12 months out. Okay. Okay, so that is a Dollar General. Jess asked, what was your next target on Google? My next target on Google is 175, Jess. Okay, that is Dollar General. Ford is another one. I own both uh, options, Leap options. Again, these were purchased in January and they have already been trimmed. Started the position down here at or around both equity and the January 2026 $8 calls is what I bought. On Ford, I started the position at $9, I believe like 970. Added to the position on this pullback here at or around $9. Then we trimmed and we trimmed again. So I am buying equity as well as options. Okay. So my last ad was at 881, it looks like. My next ad, and this would be both LEAP options as well as equity, is at $6.71. Now, for my LEAP options, I do have a stop on those, whereas my equity, I'm willing to hold through 20 years of bad or what have you. But for my options, due to the Greeks and theta decay, it is, um, you know, it it can really not pay off if you don't have some sort of stop. So I use the bottom of the demand zone as my stop. All right. So what are my next targets for Ford? It is $11, then 12.56, 14.28, 15.42, ultimately this year $17 by $26 are my targets for Ford. And again, both in leaps, these are January 2026 expirations. I do have break even stops on them because we have taken profits, but other than that, no, nothing else for me to do. Again, already have the bids in. I do not need to micro manage these trades. What else? Halliburton has not been working. Here's one that's not working. All right. Um, Casey, are all your long-term in same percentage? Not all of them, but it's the same allocation. If they're all fully allocated, yes, they are the same allocation, but depending on how quick they get to my levels to add. All right, Halliburton is next pullback to add to Halliburton is 1782 and 1186. This for equity here. As far as the leap options go, the next add is 1782, 1186, and then the stop would be 425. Now, I originally purchased these in January, right? And I bought the January 2026 expiration. If I am going to purchase more contracts at this 1782 level right here for Halliburton, and it is now April, almost May, I will purchase the expiration date that is 12 months out. Okay? That's very important. I always want to be purchasing at least 12 months out at these levels. Okay. Let's see. What Kraft Heinz. Here's one that we were in LEAP contracts options January options, and we're now out of those January options. And I am left with equity that has been trimmed quite a few times. So, started the position at $30, added to the position both LEAP options, January 2026 expirations, and more shares at $27.32. I trimmed at or around $31, again at 32.50, and again at 33.50. The next trim comes in here at 44.50 by 35.15. Ultimately targeting this red box, trimming at 38 and 41, and targeting 43 by 45. All right. Yeah, so that is just a few of the leaps, but I wanted you to understand that I don't micromanage them, but I also don't just buy and wait for 20 years. I am still using the same way that I trade my swing trades and my day trades. I implement the whole scaling in, scaling out in the same manner for these 12 plus month trades as well. Oh, thanks, Lorna, for answering questions for me. I appreciate that. I do. Yep. I have Bitcoin in my long-term account. I sure do. If I were to leap trade with options on Bitcoin, Casey, I would use IBIT as the vehicle to do that. I can show you real quick here some higher time frame levels that I would be interested in leap trading IBIT. Um, I would like to see a pullback to this quarterly demand zone at 36.55 by $22 and scale into leap trades here. The earliest really that I would enter for a leap trade would be up here at the yearly edge mid, and if I were to purchase IBIT here, the options, it would definitely just be 1 or 2 contracts, and I would choose an in the money, or at the money down here in my bigger demand zone. So I would choose like the $30 strike, even if I were buying it all the way up here at 42, simply because I don't want to be so far out of the money, price trading down here at our lower yearly edge at 26.50, and I'm in the $42 calls. That is just not the way that I like to trade. I would rather be closer to at the money than $17 out of the money there. As far as targets go for IBIT, target for this year 57.37 by 61.75. All right. All right, guys, that's a little bit about how I leap trade. Um, Basically, it's the same process for all my trading, but I hope you found it valuable, and I look forward to doing another session with you next week. Y'all have a wonderful weekend. Much love, fam.